ordered to trade a helpless alien mother and child, but he defied them to give them a home instead. The night was cold and still. The alien scrapyard stretched as far as the eye could see, a maze of broken machines, rusted ships, and twisted metal. The moonlight touched the piles of junk, making them look like strange mountains under silver. Light. Ethan moved quietly between the heaps. His boots crunched softly on the gravel, his breath forming little clouds in the air. He had been here many times before, searching for old parts to sell. Tonight, he hoped to find something valuable, a rare chip, a working battery, anything that could buy him food for the week. But tonight felt different. The air seemed heavier. The wind moved through the metal, making eerie sounds like whispers. Like voices calling from the shadows. Ethan stopped. His ears caught a faint sound. At first he thought it was the wind again. But then it came again. A soft, broken voice, weak, almost too quiet to hear. "Help. Please." Ethan froze. It wasn't his imagination. Someone was out there. He looked around. The scrapyard was a dangerous place after dark. People had disappeared here before, robbed, killed, or worse. Yet that voice, it wasn't threatening. It was trembling, desperate. He followed it. Step by step, he moved deeper into the junkyard, pushing aside old panels and ducking under bent metal beams. The smell of rust and oil grew stronger. The voice came again, a little clearer this time. "Please, don't leave me." Ethan's heart beat faster. He climbed over a heap of broken ship parts, his hands cold against the metal. Then, he saw her. Half buried under a pile of crushed cargo crates lay a figure, thin, fragile, and clearly not human. Her skin was pale silver, glowing faintly in the moonlight. Long strands of dark hair stuck to her face, damp with sweat. Her legs lay twisted at an unnatural angle, and her arms were pinned beneath the debris. She couldn't move. Her eyes opened slowly when she saw him. They were large, bright, and unlike anything he had ever seen. Gold, but with flecks of green swirling inside. "You're human," she whispered. Her voice shook as if every word cost her strength. Ethan hesitated. "What happened to you?" "My family," she said, her gaze lowering. "They left me here to die." Ethan stared at her. "Your family did this?" She nodded weakly. "I was hurt. Couldn't walk anymore. They said I was useless. A burden, so they brought me here." Ethan felt a tight knot in his chest. He didn't know much about alien culture, but he knew enough to understand cruelty when he saw it. Leaving someone to die in a scrapyard was beyond cruel. He looked around. The place was empty now, but he could imagine what would happen if others found her. Scrap scavengers would strip her of anything valuable, maybe even her body. "You'll die out here," he said quietly. Her lips curved in a sad smile. That was the plan. Something inside Ethan shifted. He had come here for metal, for parts, but now he was looking at someone still breathing, someone still alive. If he left her, she would be gone by morning. He bent down, pulling at the heavy metal beams. The sharp edges cut into his hands, but he didn't stop. Piece by piece, he freed her arms. She flinched when he touched her legs. "They're broken," she whispered. "I can't walk." "Then I'll carry you," Ethan sighed, his voice firm. Her eyes widened, almost as if she didn't believe him. "Why? You don't even know me." "Because you're alive," he said simply. "And that's reason enough." The debris finally gave way, and Ethan lifted her carefully into his arms. She was light, far lighter than he expected, but he could feel her trembling from pain. They moved slowly through the scrapyard. The wind grew colder, and the night seemed darker now. Ethan kept glancing over his shoulder, half expecting to see shadows moving. "You shouldn't help me," she murmured, her head resting against his chest. "My family, my clan, they hate humans. If they find you with me, they'll kill you." "Let them try," Ethan muttered. I'm not leaving you here." For a moment she was silent. Then she whispered, almost too softly to hear, "My name is Lyra." "I'm Ethan," he replied. "And you're going to be all right." But even as he said it, he wasn't sure. Taking her was a risk, one that could cost him his life. They finally reached the edge of the scrapyard. Ethan's small workshop wasn't far. He just had to make it there before anyone saw them. The night was quiet again. Too quiet. Then, in the distance, a flash of light blue and sharp cut through the darkness. Ethan's stomach tightened. He knew that light. It was the glow of alien patrol drones. They were searching. He adjusted his grip on Lyra and began to run. Behind him, the scrapyard seemed to whisper again, but this time it sounded more like a warning. The rain started as a light drizzle, but quickly turned into a cold, relentless downpour. By the time Ethan reached his workshop, his jacket was soaked, and Lyra's silver skin shimmered under the water, almost glowing in the dim streetlights. The workshop was a small, forgotten corner of the old industrial district. From the outside, it looked like an abandoned repair shop, its sign faded and its shutters rusted. But inside, it was Ethan's safe place. He kicked the door shut behind him, carrying Lyra straight to the old couch near the heating unit. "You'll be warm here," he said, lowering her gently. Lyra's breathing was shallow, her eyes scanning the room. Her gaze landed on the scattered tools, half-repaired engines, and the skeleton of an old exosuit in the corner. "This is where you live?" she asked softly. Ethan gave a small smile. "It's not much, but it's mine. And now, it's yours too. At least for a while." She blinked at him, confusion flickering in her golden green eyes. "Humans, you help strangers like this?" Ethan shrugged. "Not all humans, just me, I guess." He went to work immediately. He grabbed a med kit and began cleaning the small cuts on her arms. When he touched her broken legs, she winced but didn't pull away. "They'll heal," she whispered. "But slowly, without help, maybe never." Ethan looked at the dusty corner where the exosuit stood. He had been working on it for months, hoping to sell it one day for enough credits to leave the city. Now it had a different purpose. "I can fix that suit," he said, nodding toward it. "It could help you walk again." Lyra stared at him like he was speaking an impossible dream. "You would give that to me?" "Not give," Ethan said, shaking his head. "Lend, until you're strong enough to decide what comes next." Her lips trembled, not from pain, but from something else. "Why are you doing this?" "You know. My clan will not forgive you. They will send hunters. They will burn this place to the ground." Ethan's voice was steady. "Then they'll have to find me first." For the first time, Lyra gave a faint, almost shy smile. But it didn't last. She turned her head sharply toward the window. "Do you hear that?" she asked. Ethan froze. At first, it was only the sound of rain tapping on the roof. Then, a faint humming, mechanical, getting closer. He pulled the curtain aside just enough to peek out. His chest tightened. Blue searchlights swept across the alleyways. "Alien patrol drones. They found me faster than I thought," Lyra whispered, her voice almost breaking. Ethan's mind raced. The drones weren't just searching, they were scanning for heat signatures. If they found the workshop, there would be no escape. He turned off the heater, plunging the room into a sharp cold. "Stay quiet. Don't move," he said, his voice low but urgent. The humming grew louder. Shadows of the drones passed over the windows, their lights crawling along the walls. Ethan stayed still, his hand on the handle of his old plasma cutter, ready for the worst. Minutes passed like hours. Finally, the sound began to fade. The lights moved away. Ethan exhaled slowly. "We're safe, for now." But Lyra shook her head. "No, Ethan, they're not giving up. This was just the first pass. They'll come again, closer, smarter." He knew she was right. If the drones didn't catch them, the hunters would. Ethan looked at the exosuit again, half-finished, missing key parts. But if he could get it working, they'd have a chance to escape the city before it was too late. The problem? The parts he needed were in the most dangerous place he could go, the alien-controlled industrial zone. "I'll get what we need," he said finally. Lyra's eyes widened. "You'll be walking into their territory, alone." Ethan smirked faintly. "Good thing I'm hard to catch." She looked at him for a long moment, as if trying to read his soul. Then, quietly she said, "If you survive this, I will owe you more than my life." Before Ethan could respond, a sharp metallic click echoed outside, the door too heavy for a drone. He grabbed his cutter and signaled for Lyra to stay down. The door handle turned slowly. Someone was already inside. The ship's dim lights flickered as it drifted through the empty stretch of space. Vera stood near the viewport, her massive frame casting a shadow across the cabin. Outside, stars burned silently, but she knew peace never lasted. Kieran sat at the controls, scanning the radar again and again. His brow furrowed. "They're tracking us," he said. Vera turned, her voice calm but sharp. "The auctioneer? Not just him," Kieran replied. "Word's out. There's a bounty on you now, triple the usual slave price. Every hunter in this sector will be chasing us before the day's over." Vera's jaw tightened. She wasn't surprised. She was valuable now, not because of her strength, but because someone wanted her alive. And she had a good guess why. Before she could speak, the ship's alarm wailed. Red lights blinked across the panels. Kieran cursed under his breath. "Incoming." The radar showed 3 fast-moving blips closing in. Vera moved to his side. "Who are they?" "Bounty ships," he said. "And they're armed." Kieran pushed the ship into a sharp dive, engines roaring. But the hunters were faster, closing the gap. The first shot hit metal screened as a blast tore across the starboard side. The cabin shuddered, warning lights flashing. Kieran's voice was steady but urgent. "Grab the harness and hold on." The second hit came, shaking the entire ship. A panel sparked, filling the air with the bitter smell of burned wires. "We can't outrun them," Vera said, her deep voice cutting through the alarms. Kieran gave her a quick, sharp look. "Then what do you suggest?" Her eyes locked with his. "Let me fight." Before he could stop her, she moved to the cargo hold. Her chains from the auction still lay on the floor, thick metal links, heavy and solid. She picked them up, wrapping them around her wrists like makeshift gauntlets. The ship jolted again as a bounty craft latched onto the hull with a magnetic clamp. A loud hiss filled the hold. The boarding hatch was opening. Kieran's voice came over the comm. "Vera, whatever you're thinking, don't die." The hatch hissed open, and armed hunters poured in, 3 insectoid mercenaries in black armor, their rifles raised. Vera stepped forward, her massive frame blocking the entire doorway. They fired. She moved faster than they expected, swinging the heavy chain into the first hunter's chest. The impact sent him crashing into the wall with a sharp crack of metal. The second tried to dodge, but she caught him by the throat, lifting him off the ground before slamming him down with bone shaking force. The third aimed for her head too slow. She tore the rifle from his claws and bent it in half like soft wire before sending him flying back through the hatch. The hold was silent, except for her heavy breathing. "Kieran," she said into the comm, "you still alive up there?" "Still here," he replied. "And I'm guessing the noise I heard wasn't you making friends." Vera smirked. "They won't be following us." Kieran pulled the ship away from the crippled bounty craft, engines roaring as they slipped back into faster-than-light travel. Minutes later, the alarms faded, the lights steadied, and the hum of the engines returned to normal. Kieran entered the hold, stepping over the unconscious mercenaries still sprawled on the floor. He looked at the bent rifle in her hands and raised an eyebrow. Remind me never to get on your bad side, he said. Vera didn't answer right away. She looked at the wreckage, at the chains around her wrists, and then at him. You saved me from the market, she said quietly. This is me returning the favor. He met her gaze. Something tells me we're going to need each other more than we realize. The first flash of lightning split the sky, turning the wet streets into silver for a heartbeat. Then the rain came harder thick, blinding sheets that swallowed sound and light. Ethan tightened the straps of his bag and glanced at Lyra. She was wrapped in a tattered blanket, her face pale from exhaustion, her golden green eyes darting toward the window. The dropship's engine hum still rattled the air, even through the pounding rain. They'll spread out, Ethan said, his voice low. We can't use the main streets. He crouched beside her, sliding his arms under her body. She felt almost weightless, but the tremor in her breathing told him the pain in her legs was getting worse. Ready? He asked. Her eyes held his for a long moment. Ethan, you don't have to do this. Too late for that, he replied, lifting her. The workshop door opened to the chaos of the storm. Cold wind slammed into them, nearly tearing the blanket from her shoulders. Ethan kept his head low, his boots splashing through puddles as he moved down the narrow back alley. Every shadow felt like it was watching. They passed piles of trash, rusted doors, and darkened windows. Somewhere above, a faint mechanical chirp echoed, a drone, scouting the rooftops. Ethan pressed himself against the wall, holding Lyra close, as the blue searchlight slid across the rain-slick bricks, missing them by inches. Close, she whispered. Too close, Ethan muttered, moving again. The streets were a maze of twisting alleys and broken fences. Each turn seemed to take them deeper into the underbelly of the city places even the alien patrols rarely entered. But the storm made everything harder. Water rushed along the curbs, threatening to drag debris into their path. Then, through the curtain of rain, Ethan spotted it, an old hovercart half buried in junk, its tarp flapping violently in the wind. If this works, Ethan said, setting her down on the seat, we might outrun them. He tore away the tarp, his hands moving fast over the controls. The cart's engine coughed, stuttered, then roared to life with a deep vibration. They sped into the storm. The hovercart hovered low over the ground, splashing water in every direction. The wind howled around them, rain stinging Ethan's face like tiny blades, but the relief didn't last out. A beam of blue light sliced through the rain from behind. A drone had spotted them. Hold on, Ethan shouted, leaning into the controls. The cart swerved down a narrow service lane, the drone following close. Sparks erupted as the machine clipped a wall, but Ethan didn't slow. Ahead, the lane ended in a wall of stacked cargo crates. Ethan, Lyra cried, I see it. He jerked the controls, sending the cart skidding sideways into an open drainage tunnel just wide enough for them to fit. The drone's lights swung wildly before vanishing, the tunnel's curve hiding them. For a few moments, all Ethan could hear was the storm hammering the streets above them. Then movement. The tunnel was an empty dot in the flickering glow of the hovercart's dashboard. Shape shifted ahead, not hunters, not drones. People or something close to people emerged from the shadows. Alien faces, ragged clothes, glowing eyes reflecting in the dark. Lyra tensed. Outcasts, she whispered. One stepped forward, a tall figure with scars crisscrossing his face. His voice was deep, but not hostile. No one comes here unless they're running. What are you running from? Ethan met his gaze. Hunters. The man's expression didn't change. Then you've brought trouble to our door. Ethan's hand twitched toward his plasma cutter, but before the man could respond, a sound like ripping thunder shook the tunnel, the unmistakable scream of alien engines closing in overhead. The hunters had found them again. The scarred alien in the tunnel didn't speak again. He simply turned and motioned for Ethan to follow. The other shadowy figures stepped back, melting into the darkness like they had been born from it. Ethan hesitated, his grip on Lyra tightening. She gave him the smallest nod. "They won't hurt us," she whispered, though her voice sounded more hopeful than certain. The man led them through a winding path of dripping tunnels and rusted ladders until they reached a huge, circular chamber. And there it was, an ancient cargo ship, its hull scarred and its lights dead, lying on its side like a sleeping beast. It must have been here for decades, hidden away from the sky. "This is home," the man said simply, stepping through a jagged hole in the hull. Inside, the air was stale but warm. Dozens of alien outcasts moved between makeshift shelters built from cargo crates and broken panels. Some were young, others old, all marked by scars, missing limbs, or strange deformities. Lyra's gaze softened. She knew what they were: discarded lives, abandoned by their own people for being imperfect. Just like her. An old alien woman shuffled forward, her forearms carrying the pot of steaming broth. She set it near Ethan and Lyra without a word. "You're safe here for the night," the scarred man said, watching Ethan closely. "But understand, safety is borrowed, not owned. Tomorrow you leave." Ethan nodded. "We just need time to rest. And a way to fix something important." The man's gaze flicked toward the hovercart outside the ship's entrance. "Your machine won't survive another chase. But if you're looking for parts..." His eyes shifted toward a corner of the ship. "We keep a stash." Ethan followed his gaze and saw exactly what he needed. The missing components for the exosuit gleamed faintly in the dim light. But before he could ask, a soft voice came from behind. "You're protecting her," an alien girl said. She couldn't have been more than 12, with deep violet skin and bright silver eyes. "Why?" Ethan looked at Lyra, who sat quietly sipping the broth. "Because no one else would," he said simply. The girl tilted her head. "Then you're different from the others. Most humans come here to take, not to save." Her words hung in the air, heavy with something Ethan couldn't quite name. Then, a sharp crack echoed through the ship. Not thunder, not metal shifting. A sound he knew all too well, the muffled thump of a proximity mine tripping. The scarred man's head snapped up. "They found us." Panic rippled through the outcasts. Lights flickered as the ship's emergency systems woke for the first time in years. Lyra's bowl fell from her hands, broth spilling across the floor. Through the jagged hole in the hull, blue lights began to sweep the tunnel outside. Multiple footsteps. The hunters were here, and not just one or two. The scarred man barked orders, moving his people deeper into the ship. But his eyes returned to Ethan. "They came for you." Ethan stepped forward. "Then I'll deal with them," the man frowned. "You'd fight for us? We're not your kind." Ethan's voice was calm, but unshakable. "Neither is she." "Doesn't matter." He turned to Lyra. "Stay with them. Don't move until I say." Lyra's hand caught his wrist. "If you die, I have nothing." He squeezed her hand briefly, then grabbed the plasma cutter from his bag. The footsteps outside grew louder. Shadows moved against the tunnel walls. Ethan took position at the broken hull's entrance. The rain outside now a faint whisper through the cavern. His heart pounded, not with fear, but with the sharp focus that came before a fight. The first hunter stepped into view, armor gleaming wet in the dim light. Behind him, more shapes advanced. Ethan tightened his grip on the cutter. "All right," he muttered under his breath. "Let's make this hurt." The hunters didn't rush. They moved with the cold patience of predators, their glowing visors sweeping over the ship's hull like wolves circling a wounded animal. Ethan stood at the jagged opening, rainwater dripping from his hair, the plasma cutter in his hands humming with dangerous heat. Behind him, the alien outcasts huddled deeper into the cargo ship's shadows. The scarred man armed himself with a crude spear of sharpened scrap metal. Even children clutched makeshift weapon steel rods, broken pipes ready to defend what little they had. The lead hunter stepped forward, His voice deep and distorted through his helmet. "Human, step aside. Give us the cripple, and we'll let you live." Ethan's answer was immediate. "No," the hunter tilted his head. "Then you'll die with her." "Maybe," Ethan said. "But you'll have to work for it." The hunter raised his hand. The others moved in. The first came through fast, swinging a shock baton. Ethan ducked, slashing upward with the plasma cutter. The searing blade tore across the alien's chest plate, sending him crashing back with a howl. Sparks lit the rain outside. Another hunter tried to flank him, but a sudden crack of static filled the air. One of the ship's ancient defense turrets sputtered to life, its targeting system whirring. Ethan glanced back and saw Lyra. She sat propped against a wall, her hands dancing across a control panel she'd pulled from the debris. Her eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, every movement of her fingers precise. "I can hold the turrets for maybe a minute," she called. "After that, they'll fry. Then let's make it a bloody minute." Ethan shouted. The turret fired, sending a burst of energy into the tunnel. 2 hunters dropped instantly, their armor smoking. The others ducked for cover, returning fire that hissed and sparked against the ship's hull. Ethan moved forward, using the chaos to his advantage. He swung the cutter in a wide arc, cutting through a hunter's weapon, then driving his shoulder into the alien's chest to knock him off balance. The scarred man joined the fight, his spear finding a gap in an attacker's armor. The alien screamed, collapsing to the floor. A deafening explosion shook the chamber. One of the hunters had thrown a plasma grenade into the entrance. "Down!" Ethan yelled, diving over Lyra and shielding her with his body. The blast tore a chunk from the hull, raining molten metal onto the floor. The ship's lights flickered violently. Lyra's voice was strained. "Turrets offline." Ethan knew what that meant. The hunters surged in, weapons raised. Then something unexpected happened. The outcasts, every single one of them, rose from the shadows. They charged with a roar that filled the chamber, swinging pipes, rods, even bare fists. The hunters hadn't expected resistance from the worthless and discarded. For a few furious seconds, the cargo ship became a storm of movement shouts, the clash of metal, the hiss of plasma fire. Ethan fought side by side with the scarred man, their strikes flowing like they'd trained together for years. Finally, the last hunter fell, his armor smoking, his weapon clattering across the floor. The chamber was silent except for heavy breathing and the distant rumble of rain in the tunnels. Ethan straightened, wiping blood from his cheek. He turned to Lyra. She was still at the console, her face pale, but her eyes locked on him. "You fought for them," she said softly. "For all of us," he replied. The scarred man stepped forward. "You should leave before more come, but take this." He handed Ethan a small metal case. Inside were the final components Ethan needed for the exosuit. "Get her walking again," the man said. "Show them we don't stay broken." Ethan nodded, the weight of the case heavy in his hands, not from mass, but from meaning. Lyra's eyes glistened. "You really mean to take me away from here?" "Not just take you away," Ethan said, meeting her gaze. "We're leaving. The whole planet." But as he spoke, a low vibration trembled through the floor. This time, it wasn't footsteps. It was the deep, resonant hum of engines, multiple dropships, approaching fast. The hum of engines grew louder, shaking the metal bones of the cargo ship. Every alien in the chamber froze. Dropships, 3 of them were closing in. Ethan's mind raced. They had minutes, maybe less. He turned to the scarred man. "Where does this tunnel lead?" The man pointed toward a narrow service shaft at the far end of the chamber. "Straight to the river docks. But you'll need speed to outrun them once you're outside." Ethan looked at the hovercart parked near the entrance. It was barely holding together, but if they pushed it, it might be their only shot. "Help me get her in," Ethan said. Lyra didn't argue this time. She let him lift her into the cart's seat, clutching the blanket around her. The small metal case with the exosuit parts rested in her lap, as if she feared someone might take it away. The scarred man's voice was firm. "You'll be chased until you're gone from their scanners. Keep to the river's fog. Don't stop for anything." Ethan gave a quick nod. "Thank you for everything." The man smirked faintly. "Don't thank me. Just make them regret letting you live." The hovercart roared to life. Ethan gunned the throttle, the craft shooting down the tunnel. Behind them, the echoes of alien voices grew sharper, hunters storming the ship they'd just left. The tunnel narrowed until it burst open into the night, the cold air hitting Ethan like a wall. The river stretched ahead, dark and restless under. The stormed out blue lights flared behind them, dropships diving low, their spotlights tearing through the rain. "They're gaining." Lyra shouted over the wind. "Not for long," Ethan growled, steering the hovercart toward the thickest fog near the water. The rain became a curtain, hiding them from sight. One of the dropships fired, the blast ripping into the dock just behind them, sending shards of wood into the air. Ethan swerved, the hovercart skidding dangerously close to the edge of the river before straightening again. Ethan left. Lyra cried. He turned hard, and the hovercart shot down a narrow channel between two abandoned barges. The dropships roared overhead, their searchlights sweeping past, but missing them. For a tense 30 seconds, there was nothing but the sound of rain and the hovercart's engine. Then, silence. "They lost us," Lyra whispered. Ethan didn't slow. He kept going until the lights of the city were only faint glimmers behind them. Only when the fog swallowed everything did he finally ease the throttle. The docks here were empty, save for one hulking shape, a half-sunken freighter leaning against the pier. Ethan guided the cart alongside it. "This is it," he said. "We fix the suit here, then we leave this planet for good." Hours passed in the dark belly of the freighter. Ethan worked without rest, hands steady despite his exhaustion. Lyra watched him, silent, her eyes never leaving his face. Finally, he snapped the last component into place. The exosuit hummed, its servos waking after years of silence. "All right," Ethan said softly. "Let's get you on your feet." He lifted her gently into the suit, locking the braces around her legs. The suit adjusted automatically, the hum growing stronger. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, Lyra's knees straightened. She took one step, then another, her breath caught. "I'm standing." She turned to him, tears mixing with the rain on her face. "Ethan, I don't have the words. You don't need them," he said, smiling faintly. They stood there for a long moment, the storm outside beginning to fade. Then Ethan looked out at the black water stretching toward the horizon. "Once we're past the outer currents, there's nothing to stop us from reaching the human colonies." Lyra stepped closer, her new legs steady beneath her. "And when we get there?" Ethan glanced at her, a smirk tugging at his lips. "We start over, somewhere no one cares what you were, only who you are." She looked at him with a fierce, quiet determination. "Then let's go before the past catches us." They climbed into the freighter's small shuttle and powered it up. The engines rumbled to life, sending ripples across the dark water dot as the vessel rose into the sky. The city below shrank, its lights dimming against the endless night. Lyra rested her hand on Ethan's. "Sometimes," she whispered, "the one who saves you is the one you were taught to fear." Ethan's gaze stayed on the stars ahead. "And sometimes," he replied, "that's how you know it's real." The shuttle vanished into the clouds, leaving the broken world behind.